Go. Wait till they. Waiting for David. Yeah, he's.
He'll sit down.
Okay. What? Just go ahead. Okay. Good morning. The meeting of the Iowa Board of Regents for September 19th, 2024 will come to order. I will begin by calling roll. Regent Dunkel.
Here.
Regent Barker.
Here.
Regent Rouse.
Here.
Regent Lindemeyer.
Here.
Regent Kramer.
Here.
Regent Reiswick.
Here.
Regent Bates is present. We have a quorum and the meeting can proceed. Are there any items board members would like to remove from the consent agenda for a separate vote? Regent Lindemeyer?
I don't need to remove an item for a separate vote, but I do need to remove an item from the consent agenda that was part of the Academic Affairs Committee. And there was a presentation there on a merger of two programs, culinary food service and food service in general. But at Iowa State's request, they withdrew the proposal, so that needs to be removed from the consent agenda.
Okay. How do we do that?
If anybody
Does everyone on the board agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So by general consensus, we'll remove that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other further discussion? We'll take roll call. Regent Reiswick?
Yes.
Regent Dunkel?
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer?
Yes.
Regent Rouse?
Yes.
Regent Barker?
Yes.
Regent Kramer?
Yes.
Regent Bates votes yes. Motion is approved. Okay. So it's time for mine. So at this time, I would like to take time to give an update on the board's effort to implement the DEI requirements in Senate File 2435. Even though these requirements take effect on July 1, 2025, we began working on compliance right away this summer by continuing our work on implementation of the board directives on DEI passed last November and adding the new requirements in Senate File 2435. Regents Rouse, Barker, Reiswick, and I have been working with board office staff and the university presidents to ensure compliance. As I mentioned, these requirements do not take effect until July 1, 2025. However, we have set a deadline of December 31st to complete our work. And I want to reiterate that we will complete our work by December 31st. After developing a comprehensive understanding of the new requirements, we started a systematic approach of reviewing all state and federal laws and accreditation standards. The board office staff and universities, under the direction of the regents I mentioned before, are conducting a unit-by-unit analysis, identifying those DEI units, programs, and positions that are provided for by law or accreditation, and those that require additional review and potential action. This review includes both central and distributed units and positions. During the November meeting, the board will receive a comprehensive report on the status of this review and the university's progress towards meeting the board's deadline of December 31st of this year for full compliance. We are aware there have been instances, events, or programs that can be perceived as going too far. As we learn of them, we review them in the light of the law and address them appropriately. That has been our practice in the past and will continue to be our practice in the future. This will not be a static effort. We will continue to ensure we are following the law. Now, I would like to recognize each institutional head to report on recent activities at each institution. We will begin with President Wintersteen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Always a pleasure to welcome the Board of Regents to Iowa State University and my colleagues from the University of Iowa and the University of Northern Iowa. I want to recognize this morning that we are in the Ryman Ballroom here at the Alumni Center at Iowa State University, and also to share that Roy Ryman passed away earlier this week. He was an iconic publisher, a creative genius. He was an Iowa State University alum. And I know that you would join me in sending his wife Bobby and his family a heartfelt sympathy from all of us in his passing. I also want to give a special welcome to two members of my leadership team that are with us, of course, today. And that's Dr. Jason Keith, who is our new Senior Vice President and Provost for our academic division, and Dr. Sean Reeder, who is our new Senior Vice Provost for Operations and Finance. You had the opportunity to interact with them yesterday. So I appreciate the opportunity to present our legislative request for fiscal year 26. So if we'd go on to our next slide, I think I can do that here. There we go. I want to begin with a few comments about the fall semester. It's been a great semester. We had thousands of enthusiastic Cyclones attend our welcome events, including Destination Iowa State and Cyclone Welcome Weekend. And these are events for both new and returning students. We continue to see growth in our first year enrollment. We welcome 5,906 students in first year students to campus this fall. It's just a great set of new students that they certainly change Iowa State when they arrive. More students are choosing Iowa State University because of our leadership in innovation, STEM programs, degrees of the future, and the exceptional value that we provide. Iowa State University was ranked in the top 10% in the nation for affordability by money.com. We also jumped 26 spots to 119 in the latest Wall Street Journal rankings of the nation's best colleges. This ranking focused on student outcomes. That is how well a college sets its graduates up for financial success. So we're very proud of how we connect our students to affordability and outcomes at Iowa State University. So moving on to our legislative request. There are two major components of our request. The first focuses on enhancing Iowa's rural economy. Iowa State is a leading source for innovation and expertise and workforce development in the areas that are critical to Iowa's rural economic growth and prosperity. The first area is agriculture and extension. We're requesting $4.75 million increase to support additional capacity for Iowa State's Agricultural Experiment Station, which is a key partner in keeping agriculture competitive in Iowa, and Iowa State University Extension and Outreach, which provides science-tested resource and solutions to farmers and producers in all 99 counties. Specifically, these funds will support efforts to advance workforce development through upskilling and certification programs and broaden entrepreneurship opportunities. In digital and precision agriculture, Iowa State will lead advancements in technology, innovation, and on-farm practices that improve efficiency and productivity of livestock and crop production. And regarding agricultural economics and policy, Iowa State will develop new tools for farmers and agribusinesses to enhance decision-making and create strategies to assist in generational farm transfers. We'll also expand research on trade and public policy vital to agriculture and beyond. The second area for enhancing Iowa's rural economy is manufacturing. We're requesting $4 million to establish Make Iowa initiative to advance our manufacturing pipeline. As demand for American-made products rise, 60% of rural Iowa manufacturers report a shortage of salaried technical workers will impede their growth over the next 5 years. Iowa State will utilize new state resources to launch 4 manufacturing hubs. We'll collaborate with regional education institutions to create new pathways to 4-year and advanced degrees. This initiative will be led by Iowa State's Center for Industrial Research and Service in partnership with ISU Extension and the Colleges of Engineering and Agriculture and Life Sciences. The third area to enhance Iowa's rural economy is veterinary medicine. Iowa State is seeking $1 million to support scholarships for our production animal veterinary early acceptance program. Up to 10 students who are interested in practicing food animal medicine in rural communities will be selected each year. The scholarships will cover the cost of 4 years of in-state tuition, provided the student works in rural Iowa for at least 5 years after graduation. We are also requesting $250,000 for the Iowa Livestock Health Advisory Council to support research in livestock disease mitigation that will protect Iowa's over $32 billion livestock production industry. For every dollar invested by this council, Iowa State researchers can leverage an additional $10 from external funding resources. The next major component of our fiscal year 26 research request focuses on supporting Iowa business. The first part of this request includes $1.5 million to support the operational cost of Iowa State's new veterinary diagnostic laboratory. Additional state support is crucial to maintain the operational standards required of our new biosafety level 2 facility. Iowa State's VDL is the largest food animal-focused VDL in the nation, receiving more than 120,000 cases and conducting over 1.5 million tests annually. It utilizes the latest technologies to prevent and respond to disease outbreaks that can impact our food supply. Currently, 84% of the VDL's operational budget comes from testing fee income. Only 16% is funded by state appropriations. By comparison, other state VDLs on average receive nearly half of their operational budget from state funding. Next, we're requesting $250,000 in annual appropriation to expand our vibrant entrepreneurial education. Iowa State is now recognized both nationally and globally as the leader in cultivating student entrepreneurs. State funding will support staff and operations for our Start Something network. This is our growing portfolio of academic programs focused on entrepreneurship that spans all undergraduate colleges. Experiential learning opportunities such as local and national pitch competitions and conferences, and immersive incubation and acceleration programs that foster new business ventures and commercialization technologies. Finally, we're asking for an annual increase of $36,005 to support the biosciences platforms. Following the release of the Iowa Economic Development Authority's 2017 Economy Report, the state affirmed its commitment to invest in the biosciences as a key sector to grow Iowa's economy. The goal was to provide $1 million annually for each of the biosciences platform, for which Iowa State is leading efforts on 3 of them: bio-based products, vaccines, immunotherapeutics, and digital and precision agriculture. The request will provide a total of $3 million annually for the 3 platforms to enhance commercialization of new technologies, accelerate translation of scientific breakthroughs, foster collaboration between universities and industry, and further develop the state's biosciences workforce. So just $36,005 to top off the $3 million. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Regent Lindemeyer.
President Wintersteen, in your portion there on creating or advancing the manufacturing pipeline, you referred to launching 4 manufacturing hubs and partnering with regional educational institutions. Are those manufacturing hubs, are they curricular or departmental, or are they geographical around the state?
They will be associated, again, with educational institutions, Regent Lindenmeyer, and we are in the process of concluding conversations with community colleges. And at the time of this presentation, we just hadn't finished those negotiations.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Regent Barker?
I thought you made a great point about Iowa manufacturing that's maybe worth highlighting, and that's that the labor shortage that we hear about that holds manufacturing back is of educated workers, people who are university trained, and that's worth pointing out. I'm on the board of a manufacturing company in Iowa that is potentially revolutionized by a young Iowa State engineering graduate who joined the company and had some great ideas. So it's very important, and manufacturing is very important to Iowa.
Great. Thank you, Regent Barker.
Yeah, very good. Great. Any other questions? Thank you, President Wintersteen.
Thank you, Regent Bates.
I'd like to recognize President Wilson.
That looks familiar. Thank you. Good morning, President Bates and members of the board. Thanks for this opportunity to just give a few brief updates about the campus and then to talk about our request for additional state funding. We're really excited about our enrollments this year, and some of you have already seen these data, but they bear repeating. We have welcomed a great new class of new students, and I will say that everybody's commenting on their energy and enthusiasm and active involvement in all kinds of organizations and academic pursuits. We welcomed our 3rd largest class of new students in our history, in our 177-year history. Last year was our 4th largest class. This year is our 3rd largest class. Over 5,000 new undergraduates coming from all across Iowa and from outside the state as well. Again, 1 in 5 of our new students is first in family to go to college, which is something we're very proud of, and a healthy number of transfer students as well. That's about what we had last year, but it's up from 2 years ago, so we're excited about our partnership with community colleges and other institutions. Our total enrollment, 30,779 students. That doesn't include postdocs and other medical trainees, so we have more students than that or more people than that, but that's our formal enrollment number. And our growth plan, as you know, is to grow to about 33,000 over the next 5 years, and that'll happen primarily because COVID numbers are shaking out, and we'll get more steadiness in our enrollments across different colleges. We continue to pride ourselves in being a Big Ten university with a small community feel, and that differentiates us from a lot of our peers. Something I'm also extremely excited about is that our retention numbers have gone up. You may recall that we set a goal of 90% in our strategic plan. We set that as our 5-year goal, and we've reached it in 3 years. So that's a remarkable accomplishment. Every 0.5% requires moving a lot of students and keeping them in college. And when we started the plan, we were at 88%. We're now at 90%. I think it's actually 90.4%. I just learned this morning, but that's okay. We're really close there on the graph. And, you know, it's a remarkable accomplishment that requires a huge number of staff and faculty to be just laser focused on helping first-year students succeed and making sure that they stick with us for the second year. Programs that I want to call out that have been really helpful. You've heard me talk about the First Gen Hawks program. That's been a real difference maker for a lot of our students, involving coming to campus early, joining a cohort of students, getting wraparound support, career advice, and special academic tutoring, and a first-gen mentor. We also have other programs, the latter of which, the Curriculum Innovation in STEM and the Learning at Iowa, both have been funded by P3 funds. So those of you involved in the P3 board know that we've really worked on how do we create courses in that first year that really promote success and learning among our students. So stay tuned. We may have to change our goal now that we've reached our 5-year goal in 3 years. And I'm being encouraged not to be too ambitious, but to be realistic about how much work it is to move this needle. And we're really excited about it. Turning to the state appropriation, I just want to remind everyone of our request for last year, because I think it's helpful to really reinforce our commitment. This year, again, we're going to be requesting money for rural health, as we did last year. We requested $5.4 million additional funding in rural health, and I think we've actually exceeded the goals that we laid out for that funding. We promised that we would grow our Master's in Social Work program from 45 to 95 students, and we've actually grown it to 103 students, so 8 more than promised. This is a program that's really helpful to a variety of rural health needs across the state. We've also worked really hard to increase the enrollment in our psych program for advanced registered nurse practitioners. We've increased that as well. Our goal was to increase it to 21 students, and we've done that even greater than our promise. And then last but not least, our Scanlon Center for School Mental Health. We've committed to training over 80% of the K through 12 school districts, working with teachers, working with counselors in those schools, and we've accomplished that as well. So we're going to continue to do that year after year. But the point is, last year's funding has made a big difference, and we've in some cases exceeded what we promised. We're going to continue to focus on rural health. It's our commitment to the state. And this year, again, you'll see a heavy focus on rural health. We're requesting $10 million to help rural parts of the state. Our goal is always to keep care local as long as we can. It's not our desire to bring everybody to Iowa City. We can't do that anyway, and it's not good for patients. It's not good for communities. So the more we can drive healthcare into the communities, and particularly into the rural parts of the state, the better off the entire state will be. We're going to focus on 3 areas this coming year, assuming that we get this funding: mental health, maternal health, and primary care. And you'll see as I describe each of these that the goal is to train more students to become healthcare professionals, and also to train and educate current healthcare professionals around the state to make sure that they have the tools and the expertise to keep care local. So being a little bit more particular about that request, we're requesting $1.5 million in mental health, and our goal here is to increase the number of licensed mental health professionals across the state. We'd like to graduate 15 more clinical mental health counselors per year, and that would give us a total of 50 new ones by 2027. We also want to graduate more school psychologists by the year 2027, so this is really a multi-year pronged effort, and we know we can do that. And the last one I'm really excited about, we have a very strong PA program. I think you learned yesterday that it was ranked number 2 in the country. A couple of years ago, we got rid of the specialty in behavioral health because of funding. We allowed it to lapse, and we'd like to reestablish that component of our PA school. It requires an additional year of training beyond the 2 years of the PA program, but we know that we can do this and ramp up the number of professional PAs that would be committed to the state of Iowa and beyond. It involves a year of additional rotations in inpatient, specialty care, and outpatient around mental health. So that's our commitment for mental health. Our commitment for maternal health involves a request of about $2 million, and the focus here is really on training. Rather than producing more professionals, we're really laser focused here on enhancing the training out in the state. We know that there are lots of complications for pregnancies, and what we want to do is make sure that we train 150 local healthcare providers per year so that they're better able to assess the healthcare needs of women during their pregnancy, and that they're also able to communicate with different obstetric facilities outside of the rural communities. And then in the cases where we have complex care and emergencies, we want to be able to provide training for how to transport mothers in those phases of pregnancy where they need additional care. So we're going to train 25 hospitals per year in transfer procedures and how to anticipate when a woman needs to be transferred, where to transfer them, and when to transfer them in the safest and most proactive way. So this is primarily a training facet of our request. And then the third area is primary care. Here we're requesting $6.5 million investment. And there are multiple prongs in here. I'm just highlighting a few on this slide. We'd like to educate more advanced registered nurse practitioners who specialize in primary care. So with this funding, we would be able to educate RNs, additional 20 RNs who are practicing around the state, and move them into the ARNP program. This would enhance their expertise. They could stay local and do this and not leave their communities. We also would like to increase the number of pharmacy students and what's available out there in terms of local pharmacies. We actually have data that suggests that 26% of the state's pharmacists will retire over the next 3 years. So we're going to have a supply problem there, and so this funding will help us double our community pharmacist training program from 5 to 10 students per year. We'd also like to ramp up the care in audiology. As we survey the landscape across the state, we know that a number of audiologists do not have the full equipment that they need. They don't have the training that they need to do full diagnostic testing. And so we'd like to ramp that up by providing some of that training, graduating 5 more audiologists per year, which would be a 50% increase in what we're currently doing, and make sure that all of our Doctor of Audiology students have training in rural health. So these are the kinds of things. And then the last one is a little bit different. We're actually proposing a scholarship program that would support 200 in-state undergraduates per year who commit to pursuing a health profession. And so these are focused on resident students in our state who really want to pursue healthcare professions that are related to primary care. And if we can provide scholarship money, I think that'll be a great enticement to encourage more students to pursue healthcare professions that will enhance rural health. So that's really the end. There's a lot more detail in the proposal, but I just tried to give some highlights. I want to just emphasize at the end that this is a really amazing amount of work that's across our colleges. The deans from, of course, our Carver College of Medicine, but our dean of pharmacy, our dean in the College of Education, in nursing, they've all come together on a regular basis, and they're laser focused on rural health. So these ideas are part of their commitment for us to be a much more aggressive partner in making sure we keep healthcare local, and when needed, we're good partners in helping train the next round of healthcare providers. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about our request or any of the details I've shared.
Does anyone have any questions for President Wilson? I have one question about the, let me find it here, for the extra year for the psych. So what if somebody's been working as an ARNP for a few years? Can they come back and get that year? I mean,
Yeah.
it'll be open to
For the
everybody.
PA program?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about
Or
that,
the
but
PA
certainly they could do
program.
the psych ARNP
Yeah.
program. So they're two different programs and two different pathways to do mental health, I think. The PA program is pretty selective, and it's constrained because the first-year students are yoked to our medical students for their training. So that program is an additional year onto the PA program, but the Advanced Registered Nurse Practitioner program is another pathway
okay,
for working professionals to come in.
I understand it better now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And Regent Barker?
What do you think are the main factors that are causing your enrollment to increase?
I think we're doing a better job of talking about who we are and what we do outside of the state, but also in state. I think more and more students are recognizing that if they're interested in healthcare, coming to the University of Iowa will get them practical experience, internships, and paid jobs in our medical facilities earlier and sooner than if they go to a lot of other places, because we're an integrated healthcare system. So if you go to other places, the hospitals and healthcare are detached somewhat, and it's much harder. For us, it's a freshman can get in and work and volunteer in the hospital. So I think we're doing a better job of talking about the value proposition for in-state students, and I think we're doing a better job of communicating what Iowa affords out-of-state students as well.
So you think it's better recruiting efforts that are causing the increase? Okay.
Financial aid always helps too. So, yeah. But
Regent
you
Lindemann?
heard you heard Kirk yesterday. I mean, the work that we're doing on recruitment and enrollment management is at the top of the field nationally. We're always asked to share what we're doing on data analytics, how we're doing outreach, and I think I've shared with you, we now have full-time recruiters around the country who are working to talk about why should you come to Iowa if you live in California? Why should you come to Iowa if you live in Texas? And now our goal is to keep them in the state once they graduate. So I think many of these state appropriation requests are geared toward helping increase the opportunities to keep this talent in the state.
Regent Lindemeyer?
Just a comment, I wanted to applaud your efforts on the rural health initiative, and I was just reflecting a bit. I've lived, I guess, in the rural part of Iowa my entire life, and I've really watched it deteriorate, you know, and as an example, I'll just give you my personal example. I don't have any big health issues. I may not look that way, but I don't experience any right now. But in the last 4 years, I've had 6 different doctors, and they've all moved from the community. And as I go back for my annual physical, last time I was supposed to have an appointment next month, and I was called, and they said, well, your doctor's left. We'll give you a nurse practitioner, and we can get you in January. And I'm glad I don't have any issues that have to be addressed right away, but I've just watched that deteriorate my whole life, and I think, you know, experts have been predicting this was going to be a problem, and I think it seems to me it's about ready to explode if it's not addressed somehow. But
Thank you,
hope you
Regent
find
Lindemeyer.
answers.
And it's not just Iowa, right? It's rural communities across the country. The good news is, and I've said this before, but we are an integrated healthcare system here, and we're the only academic healthcare system in the state. So it's a lot easier for us to meet the needs of the state. We're not competing with other academic healthcare systems. We're not stepping on each other's toes. So if anywhere we can accomplish this, it's in a state like Iowa. And many of the people who are joining us on the faculty are energized by the opportunities for partnership here.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jim. Very good comment. Thank you, President
Thank
Wilson. President Nook?
Thank you. Regent President Bates, members of the Board of Regents, it's a pleasure again to be with you and talk about the University of Northern Iowa. As you have been able to read recently, our enrollment numbers are out, our academic success markers are out. Enrollment is up 2.9%, second year in a row that we're up. It's been a while since we've been able to make that statement, in fact, over a decade, since we've had 2 years in a row that enrollment was up. So it is an exciting time on our campus. Our academic success markers with the 4-year graduation rate, while it dipped just a little tiny bit, it's still essentially at 50% for 4-year graduation rate. To put that number in just a little bit of context, neighboring state released their average 6-year graduation rate for regional comprehensives like us. Their 6-year graduation rate is 49%. We're a percentage point above that with our 4-year graduation rate. It says a great deal about the academic success of our students and the commitment of our faculty and staff to our students' success at the University of Northern Iowa. Our recent growth has really come because of our focus on the needs of the state of Iowa, and you can see that in opening new pathways like the UNI at Iowa Community College's project, which allows students who normally would not be able to get an education to enter and receive a 4-year education. It's also a commitment to new programs that Iowa needs, academic programs that Iowa needs, and that students want, including the new nursing program and the material science engineering program. As you will see with our appropriations request, that focus on meeting the needs of Iowa is exactly what we're going to continue to do and grow the enrollment significantly at the University of Northern Iowa. Our first request is a request for $3 million to support workforce recruitment. When I came to the state in 2017, the largest economic issue in front of the state was the fact that we had 60,000 job openings and 40,000 unemployed people. It's a gap of 20,000 jobs that simply can't be filled because the people aren't here. We can talk about getting more of our citizens actively into the workforce, but ultimately we need to recruit people from outside of the state if we have any hope of closing that gap. That 20,000 worker gap has continued. It hasn't gotten any smaller. In fact, it's increased just a little bit. The University of Northern Iowa is uniquely positioned to help with this. We have capacity to significantly grow our enrollment at the University of Northern Iowa. We also know that between 40 and 50% of our students that graduate from UNI that come from out of state take their first job in the state of Iowa and they stay in the state of Iowa. Consequently, we have the capacity and the ability to recruit people into the Iowa workforce by getting them to come to the University of Northern Iowa. What we are asking is that the state help us fill a hole that would be created if we were to allow students from contiguous states to the state of Iowa to pay in-state tuition. It would greatly increase our enrollment, likely by at least a factor of 3. The data actually suggests that it's a factor of 7, but I tend to be a little bit conservative, and I like to under-promise and over-deliver than the other way around. The data is actually pretty robust. The Minnesota produces every year the Minnesota Tuition Reciprocity Annual Report that documents how students matriculate between Minnesota and Wisconsin, Wisconsin and Minnesota, South Dakota and Minnesota and South Dakota. Looking at that data suggests that we should see a factor of 7 increase in our enrollment from those states. That would put us on our path to achieving our enrollment goals within about a 5-year period. It'll take a while for it to build up. It would also create hundreds of new workers in the Iowa workforce when you go through and calculate the number that would actually graduate and the percentage of those, assuming that it's 40% stay in the state. It would produce in the neighborhood of 300 new workers per year once the program's fully established. So the recruitment cost is actually quite low when you think of this as an economic development project. This isn't about growing our enrollment. That's a side benefit. The emphasis is on getting people to the state of Iowa to take the jobs that are here and preparing them to have the education to take the jobs that are available in the state of Iowa. So the request is for $3 million to allow us to offer in-state tuition to students from those states that border the state of Iowa. We're also asking for $2.5 million in general fund appropriation increase to allow us to hold our tuition down as much as possible so that we can differentiate ourselves from Iowa and Iowa State. This is a project that we've been working on really since the 2018 legislative session. Update on the data here. Again, what you're looking at is the difference in tuition between the regional comprehensives in a state and the research intensive institutions in those states. And again, we've looked at the border states, Illinois, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, and Wisconsin. We don't include South Dakota because they don't have true research-intensive institutions in that state. Their flagships don't do the level of research that Iowa and Iowa State do. So we focus on the states that are much more like our own. What you can see is that typically the students that are going to the state's regional comprehensives pay anywhere between $2,000 and $6,500 less per year than the students going to the flagships, the research intensives. We have moved that number here in the state of Iowa over the years from $188 to $1,099 with work that you have done and the help that we've received from the legislature and the hard work of our staff at the University of Northern Iowa. We, again, need to continue to push that number up. Back in 2017, we talked about trying to get that number to 2,500. We've made some progress, but we'd like to continue to do that. $2.5 million would allow us to, again, keep our tuition level at a lower rate and be able to build some of that differentiation between our research-intensive institutions in the state. Our third request is for special allocation to support UNI at Iowa Community Colleges. This has been an extremely successful program that was launched just a few years ago. This year, it says we have an increase of 14%. Now that the data is actually in at 16% this year, and last year it was an increase of 67%. So since we've started it, this thing has doubled. It's moved rather quickly. One of the things that has been really important in growing this is Governor Reynolds appropriated to us $4.167 million out of American Recovery Plan funds, and we used most of those dollars for scholarship support for students who had financial need. We offer each student who has financial need really a tuition offset. These students, for the most part, are place-bound. They figured out how to get a degree at one of their local community colleges. Many of them have full-time jobs. Many of them have families. They've figured out how to handle the finances of going to college at a community college by coming to the University of Northern Iowa. The increase in tuition is a barrier for many of them. This entire program is set up around removing as many barriers to education as possible. Those funds that we receive from the federal government through Governor Reynolds will run out this year. While there's more time on them, we've used them all with the students because the program has been so successful. What we're asking for is then $1.63 million in a special appropriation for scholarships for the students in the UNI at Iowa Community College programs that meet financial guidelines to offset their tuition between what our tuition is and what they would be paying at one of Iowa's community colleges. Well, first of all, thank you for approving the Civic Education Center this morning. Otherwise, it would be very awkward talking about this slide. The Civic Education Center, as you have heard, is something that we've been working on for years. It isn't new for us. We've been engaged in civic education for a long time and have put structures together, and it really has been fairly straightforward for us to step forward with the proposal that you approved. Part of that, though, now to really get it running is to fully fund and make it operational. The $1 million would help us, first of all, get the director hired and put in place the infrastructure to help this Civic Education Center launch as a true center. It would also support materials and programming outreach to K-12 institutions. Ultimately, this program is going to follow the same model that we used for UNI Center for Urban Education that many of you know about, all of you know a great deal about. That center has some state funding to really support a director, but they really support themselves off of the federal grants and other funds that they pull in. That is the intention here as well. And that a little bit of seed money will garner a great deal of federal funding, funding from supporters who understand and believe in the mission of civic education at the University of Northern Iowa. So this is, again, a special request of $1 million to support the Center for Civic Education. We are asking for level support on our other special areas. These are funds that we already receive in real estate education. Educators for Iowa, a program that we initiated a little over a year ago to help generate more teachers in the state of Iowa to meet the critical shortage that is in the teaching profession here. Continue funding for the Institute for Decision Making and the Metal Casting Center and the Foundry 4.0 Center, as well as the Regents Innovation Fund. I want to take a breath and celebrate a few people. Our institution a few years ago created a purpose statement which reads that the purpose of the University of Northern Iowa is to enrich lives, communities, and the world through our students, our alumni, and our faculty and staff. Olivia Chambers is a young woman that grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. At the age of 16, she went blind. She was a swimmer, kind of tipped her world upside down. They still don't know exactly what caused her blindness. She wanted to continue to swim, and we offered her a scholarship. She came to the University of Northern Iowa and swims on our swimming team and is extremely competitive in the Missouri Valley Conference. She, through some of her friends on the team and one of our assistant coaches, got involved in the Paralympics and was selected to compete in the Paralympics in Paris earlier this month, actually. She competed in 6 events. She came home with 1 gold and 2 silvers and 3 fifth-place finishes. It was amazing to watch all of her races, but the 400 meters, the race in which she won her gold medal, was especially touching. She led throughout the race. As she came into the wall and touched the wall, she hit the wall and she looks to her right, she looks to her left, and then celebrates. What she told the reporter afterwards is she can't see any of the other swimmers, whether they're in front of her or behind her. So until she reached the wall, she had no idea whether she was in first place or last place. And she said it was really exciting to look up and not see anybody else at the wall. She beat everybody by more than a body length. She swam in another event, and the 3 Americans had all swam in it, and they came over to talk with the reporter, the TV reporter. None of them knew how they had finished. One of them had finished 3rd, but none of them knew where they had finished until they got there, because they couldn't even see the place finish up on the board. It has been a tremendous story. We'll have a celebration here next week, the return of Olivia to our campus. She won the gold in the 400-meter freestyle, as I mentioned, her silver in the 100-meter breaststroke, and a silver in the 200-meter IM. She placed 5th in the 50-meter freestyle, the 100-meter fly, and the 4x100 free relay. We also had 2 alums that competed in the Paralympics in Paris earlier this month as well. Jessica Himes is a young woman from Swisher that was a member of the UNI track and field team. She threw the discus for the United States and placed 6th. This is her 3rd Paralympics. Erin Kirchhoff, who you see on the far right, is a young woman from Solon. This is her 2nd Paralympics. She also competed at UNI in track and field as a scholarship athlete. She placed 5th in the 400 meters and 7th in the 100 meters. So congratulations to these young women, but just a few examples of the way in which the University of Northern Iowa really does impact the affairs around the world. It was so great, especially the coverage of Olivia. They continued to refer to her from Cedar Falls. She'd grown up in Little Rock, but she lives in Cedar Falls, and continued to talk about the University of Northern Iowa. So a great pleasure to see the way that our students, our faculty and staff really do get out and help us publicize how great a place the state of Iowa really is. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for President Nook? Great presentation. Thank you, President Nook. I'd like to recognize Brad Burke, who will do a presentation on the appropriation request.
President Bates. Brief, but for the board's consideration today are the operating and other appropriations requests for fiscal year 2026. And to briefly summarize what we just heard from the presidents, the requests include service to Iowans programs, including Iowa's Rural Healthcare Partnership, Iowa State's Enhancing Iowa's Rural Economy, and UNI's partnership with community colleges, as well as the Workforce Recruitment Program. Other requests include additional support for economic development programs and the vet diagnostic lab. Excuse me. I would be happy to respond to any questions.
Are there any questions for Brad? I know we've had the material in our books. Okay. A motion and a second are required to approve the operating appropriations request for FY 2026 as outlined in the docket item and to authorize actions by designated Regent staff to seek collaboration and partnerships between Regent institutions and other sectors of state government. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Regent Dunkel. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Regent Browse. Is there any further discussion? Roll call. Regent Lindemeyer.
Yes.
Regent Barker.
Yes.
Regent Reiswick.
Yes.
Regent Rouse.
Yes.
Regent Dunkel.
Yes.
Regent Kramer.
Yes.
Regent Bates votes yes. The motion is approved. Thank you, Brad. Okay, at this time, let me welcome Iowa State University Provost Jason Keith, who will introduce the faculty presenter.
Thank you, Regent Bates. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you one of Iowa State's most productive and forward-thinking faculty members, Dr. Matt Darr. Matt has many titles. He is a professor of agricultural and biosystems engineering, and he holds the John Deere Endowed Chair in Ag Innovation. Matt also leads Iowa State's Digital Ag Innovation Laboratory, as well as our BioCentury Research Farm. When you think of Iowa State's land-grant mission and how all the pieces fit together, Matt and his work are a great example. His scholarship envisions a future for farming that leverages technology to improve efficiency and profitability, work that is shared across the state by his colleagues in Extension and in Outreach. This work has resulted in 89 patents and licensed technologies and $75 million in external funding. Very impressive numbers. Matt is also a gifted educator, not only teaching classes in precision agriculture, but bringing students into his research program who will go on to support Iowa's multi-billion-dollar agricultural economy. Without further ado, Dr. Matt Darr.
Thank you, Provost. It's really a pleasure to be here today. I've been at Iowa State for 17 years. I've been in agriculture my whole life. I grew up on a grain and livestock farm in the eastern side of the Corn Belt. And to work in innovation in Iowa and agriculture is just so natural, right? Our farmers are leading innovators. Our counties, our rural communities, our rural businesses that support agriculture have always been at the cutting edge of innovation. And it's a real pleasure to be able to lead our program, the Digital Ag Innovation Lab, and continuing this effort and making sure that we're supporting the state in several ways. I want to start with a few comments about why we do what we do. I think the why is usually more important than the what, right? Why we come to work every day. The Digital Ag Innovation Lab is made up of a handful of faculty members and approximately 60 full-time professionals and graduate students that are paid for from external grants and contracts that amplify the work that we do throughout the state. We come into work every day to advance agriculture. We believe that technology has a key role to play in helping overcome some of the challenges that we have ahead for us, make us more resilient in our agricultural systems. And we know that we're in this for the long term because we're going to need food and fuel for long beyond any of us, right? In terms of this industry, we measure our success directly through economic impact, jobs created, and innovations licensed. We really care about that. We care a lot about public-private partnerships and how we can be part of that engine to make those work. And I'll say that the public-private partnership is really public-private-private. We're a public entity. When we think about the private sector in this space, there's really two different private sectors. One is the companies that we work with, the ag industries that we work with, and help support them through technology development every single day. We help them move faster. We help them get products to market quicker. We help them align to Iowa farmer needs faster. That's good for us. It helps us to bring industry support into our classrooms, makes us better as we prepare students for the jobs they're going to take. But there's a second part of the private relationship as well, which is the farmers and stakeholders that are all throughout the state of Iowa. And the fact that we're so engaged in technology development means when that new technology hits the market, we are distinctively prepared to help farmers throughout the state make decisions of, is it right for me? Does that help me on my farm? Right? How do I leverage this new opportunity for me? And you know, you think about that circularly, right? What happens, right? If we do a good job in that sector and more technology gets developed, we create an economic pull. We create an opportunity for those industries that we have that are supporting in our manufacturing sectors to grow as well. And we're very passionate about that. We're passionate about the service that we can provide to help that engine churn and know that win-win-wins are the game that we're after. You know, we win through being able to be better in the classroom for those relationships. Our industry partners win through bringing products to market faster, and our farmers and our rural communities win because we're doing a better job of delivering education and solutions for them as well. We do talk about a few impact numbers that we're quite proud of. So we're up to 90 patents and tech transfer licenses, and by the first of the year, I think we'll get into triple digits. We're super proud of that. We have a demonstrated history of helping companies be successful and get products sold. I often joke that at Iowa State University, we don't manufacture tractors or combines. And so if we're going to do something, we're going to make an innovation that helps farmers be successful, we have to do that through partnerships in order to enable the companies that are delivering that to farmers to get that in their hands. Very few farmers in Iowa would ever know that when they look at their yield monitor or they look at a control system on a tractor that we had something to do with that. But our DNA is spread across multiple industries. We have a direct connection to 300 full-time jobs that we've created in Iowa or spun off from our work, and we're super proud of that. We know the impact of job creation, and there's gravity to all this. And in the Iowa, particularly the central Iowa area, we've created over $500 million of economic development and private capital infrastructure projects that have come in from companies that have wanted to work more closely with us and have brought much of that would have happened somewhere. We just helped to ensure it happened here, as opposed to other places in the country. From a technical standpoint, there's a couple things we're sort of known for. One is yield data. Yield data, or the map you make across the field, really highlights sort of where your production comes from across the field. It's the foundation for agronomic and economic decision makers that farmers make every day. It's timely to talk about this because we started harvest in Iowa this week. So for those that didn't get rained on this morning, there are farmers in Iowa in their combines. They're looking at a yield map, gaining insights into their business with no idea that our DNA is behind many of those innovations. But we don't just work in corn and soybeans. That picture on the lower right is not corn and soybeans. That's from a photo from a sugarcane harvesting operation in south central Louisiana. And if I would ask you a trivia question of where was the only commercially viable sugarcane yield monitor invented at, Ames, Iowa was probably the last place, or one of the last places you'd guess. But we were a key part of leading the development of that technology, which is now introduced globally for that industry. Tens of thousands of farmers every year make decisions from data that we help produce and embed science into those technology solutions. We're also pretty widely known for our work in precision spray technology. So AI, artificial intelligence, is making a major push in herbicide application across the state. So cameras, whether that camera is on a drone or on a sprayer, is available now to see weeds and spray only the weeds that are in the field, as opposed to just broadcasting everything, right? It's like if you're walking across your yard and spraying dandelions, you could choose to only spray the dandelions that are there, or you could broadcast the whole thing. And we are helping to transition agriculture to a much higher precision space. This is a great example where this technology has been in development for a number of years. It just recently came to market, and as our farmers see that come to market, they bring questions. And we're there. And we're there with answers because we've been there through the development. We've been there on the leading edge, on the technology side, that puts us in a place to support our farmers as they begin to integrate that into their businesses. And what I also love about this is it hits on the span of connections we have and how we choose to serve. We work with some of the largest companies in the ag sector in this space, but we also work with single-person startups that are in the drone application space as young farmers trying to figure out how to diversify their business so they can get started in agriculture but still have some sort of off-ground income. Really proud of all the work our team's done, and our best estimate today is there's roughly 50 million acres, of ground that we affect every year through reduced herbicide spray drift because of our work and our ability to transfer that with our partners. We bring this into workforce development as well. Because we work so closely with the ag industry, we hear all the time about the challenges they have, everything from the manufacturing issues and automation in factories to the basic talent they need to be successful every day. At Iowa State, we would never tell a student where to work, right? That's not our job. I do believe it's an opportunity we have to raise the flag for all the great companies we have in Iowa. And so we've started a Raise the Flag campaign in ag tech, which is really focused on helping to introduce the young men and women we have at Iowa State into the awesome opportunities that exist. When you take the typical student that maybe didn't grow up in a rural community and you ask them what a cool company to work with would be, they're usually going to rattle off some names that they see in the news and are likely not necessarily Iowa-based companies. And we really work with our Iowa manufacturers to run boot camp programs, sort of after-hour programs, weekend programs, to make sure that these students know how much innovation and technology is embedded to every part of agriculture, right? One of the secrets of Iowa agriculture is there are thousands and thousands of software engineers working in agriculture in the state of Iowa, right? Very few of them came from a rural ag background. And we have a play there as well to help those individuals that are leading in that sector to understand how agriculture works, what the supply chains look like, what the needs are. And by doing that, we're just helping to spool that overall economy of helping our companies make great products that drive value into our farmers, that create a pull for more great products and continue to grow success. We've also rolled this across the statewide impact and our 99 county influence, right, that so many of us in the room are very, very proud of. For us, there's a couple pieces of this. We're proud of the statewide relationships we have with our industry partners and small and large businesses that we help, right? On a week-to-week basis, we're working with companies in, Sioux Center and Waterloo and Pella and Ottumwa and Dubuque and across the state, right? And we're doing that in a way that serves them so that we can, again, help them develop the core technology. But our farmers are at a place where they often can have more technology than they even know how to manage. And so we launched a program 3 years ago called Planter University. And it was based on the concept of how do we go out and meet people where they're at, right? How do we go out and help farmers in their backyard to be more successful? And this has really blown up. It's an event that we run at multiple locations around the state every year. It sells out in every location. We've gotten to the place where we had 14 states and folks from Canada coming into this. We had folks from as far as Ohio coming over to this event last year. So it's a demonstration of when we put our mind to it and view our role as service as being key, the kind of impact we can make throughout the entire state. We've had such a success there that we've started to branch out, and after 3 years of success, we've launched our drone university, and Combine University is coming next, and Applicator University is coming next. And the whole point is to get out in the state, to drive value, to educate, and to help farmers, to hear and help farmers solve the problems that they face every single day. I pulled a couple quotes from the feedback we get from this, and I could spend all morning just talking about the positive feedback. But I pulled two that really stand out to me. The first one is from a young farmer, right? And I bolded the point that matters there. I'm planting for the first time ever in 2023, right? I've driven a tractor. I've never pulled a planter. I'm still nervous, but I'm less nervous, right? I mean, we're helping him. That's an individual that had a positive experience that is going to be more prepared to run his or her business next year through the work that we've done. And the second bullet point is also one that we hear a lot of, right? Exceptional job, agronomic significance, uniformity yield, great practical value. We've tried to really embody the Iowa State motto of science with practice in this program. We bring science to farmers in the state. We bring it in a way that helps them in the decision-making process, but the practice piece, bringing a strong element of practical knowledge is really key to that overall mission. We're also helping to prepare for the future, and I believe that the future of agriculture, the future of Iowa's industries here are going to have a strong presence of AI and autonomy in them. This snapshot is a view of Ames and companies in the Ames area, and this was from the last year, and people move around, so this isn't always perfectly up to date. But what I'm trying to highlight there is just within the Ames area, there's 10 companies, big and small, that are actively working on AI and autonomy applications in agriculture. Our work, leaning in to help drive success in the space, is a critical part of ensuring that the Des Moines to Ames corridor we talk about continues to be and establishes itself as the Silicon Valley of ag tech. We believe that. We believe this growth is going to happen independent of our choices of involvement, but by involving ourselves, by getting engaged, by helping to drive that circle of economic success, we want to keep these jobs in Iowa, and we want to keep the companies in Iowa, and then we keep their investments here in Iowa to help them continue to grow. I'm going to end with this slide. I've asked, this is a survey. I've asked our industry partners this a lot of times over the years, and I ask them why, right? We tell them our why. Here's our story. Why do they come to us? When they can choose anywhere they want to spend their R&D, why do they choose to spend research and development dollars with Iowa State? Why do they choose us to be a partner to help them be successful? And I give them 6 choices: facilities, location, central Iowa's easy to get to in other parts of the world. Our people, our scientific expertise, our talent pipeline, our tech transfer ease. And I make them force rank it. So they can't give everything 5 stars, right? These are all positive things. So put them in order, right? How would you rank these? How do you think our partners rank these? So I'm an instructor, so I know if I stay silent for at least 10 seconds, somebody will get, yeah.
Regent Barker.
Well, I guess people and scientific expertise.
Yeah, it's always the people, right? I mean, the reason that we create success is not that we've got better, technical expertise than the next group over, or we have some awesome, we have great facilities and infrastructure, no doubt about it. That helps set us apart in other areas. But it's about the people, right? It's about the drive to serve every single day when we come into work to help people be successful. It's about our passion and belief that if we help Iowa companies be successful and Iowa farmers be successful, that creates a natural pull and environment that continues to help us be strong within the state. Yeah. So with that, I want to say again, thank you for the opportunity to come present, and I'd be more than happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Dr. Dar? President Wintersteen.
I don't know if my mic's on, but I just want to share a quick story that I haven't even shared with Dr. Dar, and that is just recently I got a thank you note from a participant in Planter University. Can you imagine? So they wrote to me as president of the university to thank the university for having Planter University and what an incredible experience it had been. So they bothered to write to me. And I think that's an indication
awesome. Yeah.
of what a successful program this is that has just been shared with you. So I just wanted to share that. I get a lot of thank you notes, but that was really special. So thank you, Matt.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Regent Dunkel.
We farm in Northeast Iowa. Thank you for all you do. Are you working on anything to help make it rain when the ag industry wants it to rain?
Yeah, we say that we work a lot to get great technology in the bag, and that once you open the bag of seed, we do a whole lot of things to try to help you get that technology in the field. But that's kind of where we stop at that point. So, yeah. Yeah, whether, I mean, I'm kind of joking, right? But actually, we have a whole training we do about how technology can help with weather resilience. And that's, last 3 years in Iowa, we've had a couple really dry springs that were super easy, and we had a pretty wet spring this year in a lot of parts of the state that was really hard. And so, in planting in particular, which is like the most important thing that we do in agriculture, that we control at least outside the rain, farmers do it 10 days a year. And our team that works in technology development planners, we do it 12 months a year, right? Every single day, we've got activity in planting. And so we try to bring that knowledge to farmers of, hey, I know the last 2 years you did this because the weather was this direction, but it's a wet spring. You need to think about it, adapting your practices to protect yourself. Yeah.
And just for everyone here, planters nowadays are not like they were even 5 or 10 years ago. It is an amazing, that's a heck of an expensive, but a very big asset to farmers, so thanks again.
Regent Barker?
So yields have been increasing for a long time, and that's great for the world and great for Iowa because we have a comparative advantage in implementing that technology because of what you do. But my question is, when productivity increases for a long time, you wonder whether we're reaching a point of diminishing returns. Is that the case, or are we reaching an inflection point where AI and other new technologies are going to increase that rate of growth in yield?
Yeah, I have an extension talk about no plant left behind, which is kind of a play on trying to maximize the potential of every seed in the bag. And I would just say we are fundamentally a long way away from reaching peak productivities. We have a lot of headroom. Our Iowa farmers do an awesome job of what they do. Technology helps with that. But we're a long way from home in terms of the additional runway we have with even today's technology. Yep.
Anybody else? Thank you. We farm, and we're a little bit older than some of the young farmers you're talking about, and it has been truly so interesting watching the technology come through and so quickly. And if I may say, watching my husband learning to deal with it. So.
We'll sign him up for Planner University, and we'll help out with that.
Well, we're retired now, but thank you so much. Yeah, thank you very much. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we'll take a 10-minute break right now. Thank you. At this time, let me welcome Iowa State University Provost Jason Keith, who will, oh, I'm sorry, that was the last time, I apologize. Yeah, that's right.
Are you sure?
Okay, well, it provided everybody a good laugh. Okay. So I'd like to recognize Board Counsel Amy Clays, who will introduce the trainers for the sexual harassment and discrimination prevention training.
Thank you, President Bates. It's my pleasure to introduce ISU Associate Counsel Brett Lowe-Hefner and Equal Opportunity Director Mary Cerna, who will provide the board and board office staff with harassment and discrimination prevention training.
Good morning. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present on this annual training. My name is Mary Howell Cerna. As Amy said, I'm the Director of the Office of Equal Opportunity as well as the Title IX Coordinator. And so today we're going to focus and can kind of give you a roadmap of where we're going today. The training will focus on 4 main areas. First, we're going to define what harassment and discrimination is. Then we're going to talk about the federal and state law and relevant policies and how they define discrimination and harassment. We're then, once defined, we're going to explore how to properly respond to concerns around these issues. And then finally, we're going to talk about your rights and your responsibilities and resources that are available related to harassment and discrimination and what requirements you have when you become on notice with these things. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brett to go through a quick overview of our significant anti-discrimination and harassment laws.
As Mary said, thanks for having us. We wanted to begin by a brief overview of the federal anti-discrimination and anti-harassment laws. The first one we wanted to talk about was Title VII. Title VII is the primary and main anti-discrimination and anti-harassment law that impacts employment and access to work. It prohibits discrimination and harassment based on what we are going to be talking about, and those are protected classes. And under Title VII, race, color, national origin, religion, and sex are those prohibited bases for discrimination or harassment. Importantly, Title VII also prohibits retaliation. Retaliation is if somebody engages in protected activity. Usually protected activity is someone making a complaint about discrimination or harassment in the workplace. If someone engages in that protected activity, they're protected from any sort of retaliation for that. So that's also protected under Title VII. Also, another important federal law is the Age Discrimination and Employment Act. It prohibits discrimination based on age, 40 years of age or older. And also the American Disabilities Act. American Disabilities Act extends to discrimination and harassment based on disability or perception of disability. And importantly, it also requires reasonable accommodations. Reasonable accommodations are reasonable alterations to policy or workplace environments to allow people with disabilities to equally participate. Continuing, Title IX. Title IX doesn't typically extend to employment. That's covered by Title VII, but as higher education institutions that receive federal funding, Title IX covers our education programs and activities, and it prohibits discrimination and harassment based on sex and gender. And similarly, Title VI also extends to our education programs because they receive federal funding, and it prohibits discrimination and harassment based on race, color, and national origin. And also, finally, the veteran status. This specifically protects veterans' access to employment and also to educational opportunities. Briefly, a description of what discrimination and harassment means based on federal law. Discrimination is any adverse treatment based on actual or perceived protected status. The perceived is important because someone may not actually belong to that protected class, but if they're perceived to be, or if the person engaging in the harassment or discrimination believes they are, that can also count as prohibited discrimination. And that adverse treatment has to unreasonably interfere with employment or education. Harassment, similarly, is unwelcome conduct that's subjectively viewed unwelcome conduct based on actual or perceived protected status. And to meet the legal definition, it has to be sufficiently severe and pervasive to unreasonably interfere with education or employment. Iowa Code, Chapter 216, it codifies for Iowa law the protected classes that we talked, largely what we talked about under federal law. They mirror those protected classes, but Iowa Code extends that to several other additional protected classes. So under Iowa law, for employment and education purposes, we have age, race, creed, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, religion, and disability as our protected classes where discrimination and harassment would be prohibited.
Okay, so what does applicable federal, state law, and policy prohibit? They prohibit discrimination on the basis of protected status in any aspect of employment. And these are several of them, but they're not exclusive to this. We think about it in recruiting, hiring, promoting, transferring, discipline, assignments, providing benefits, or discharging. Similarly, it also applies in education in areas such as grading, discipline, and participation. Now, federal regulations, Title IX and Title VII require specific definitions of sexual harassment. And the three categories of prohibited sexual harassment are these: quid pro quo, which in layman's terms is this for that, sexual harassment by an employee; severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive sexual harassment; and the federal VAWA statute, known as the Violence Against Women Act crimes, which are domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, and sexual assault. Specific examples of what's prohibited, for example, a quid pro quo situation would be the this for that. A person who has apparent authority demands participation in some type of sexual behavior in return for a benefit or to avoid a detriment. And then hostile work environment. Hostile work environment is unwelcome sexually offensive conduct that is sufficiently severe or pervasive to create an intimidating or demeaning work environment. So let's go through a couple examples of this. For quid pro quo, for example, it would be a supervisor telling an employee they wouldn't get a raise or some other benefit, going to a conference, being allowed to take time off, unless they agree to go on a date with their supervisor. Similarly, in the education realm, you could have a faculty member ask a student out for a date with the implication that if they failed to do so, they would get a lesser grade or they wouldn't get some type of internship or a recommendation. With regards to hostile environment, this would be a situation, for example, where student A repeatedly makes lewd comments in class and jokes to student B at the beginning of each class session or during the classroom participation. Student B tells student A that they do not want to discuss this. They don't want to hear these comments, and they just ask them to stop. Instead of stopping, student A persists, and this results in B being uncomfortable, skipping class, and avoiding A in all other areas of the university, therefore impacting the educational environment by their behavior.
We've talked so far about federal law and state law prohibiting these. We also just wanted to briefly point to the Board of Regent Policy Handbook and the manual. And also, you can also find the similar language in each of the Regent institutions' policies. These are just where that federal law and state law is codified in our policies. So we have the Office Conduct and Decorum section of the handbook, which again mirrors that kind of unwelcome, severe, and pervasive language. Importantly, it covers non-targeted conduct, which again kind of goes back to that hostile environment where the particular complainant may not be the actual specific target of the hostile conduct or the unwelcome conduct, but it might still create overall an atmosphere that makes that unwelcome. We also have the Board Policy Manual, Chapter 2.1, Section 4, which again kind of mirrors that federal law and state law with prohibiting sexual harassment. And importantly, it also includes the complaint and investigation procedures, or the importance of that, and we'll talk about that in future slides about what that process looks like.
Okay, so it's important to understand what harassing conduct may be. I think it's pretty obvious. Physical, we think of with harassing conduct, unwanted touching, grabbing, asking to be touched. Also, a lot of times people think of the verbal, offensive language, threats, name calling, but there's also harassing conduct could be nonverbal situations, such as offensive gestures or offensive images, offensive emails being sent, or just other intimidating conduct. It's also important to remember that harassment is impermissible no matter who commits it. It doesn't have to be a supervisor. It could be a coworker, it could be a customer, it could be a visitor to the universities, it could be students. And the most important thing is, once we have notice, it's the institution's responsibility to take reasonable steps to address the situation and prevent the harassment from happening again. And the most important thing is, once we have notice, unless people report, we can't respond.
We wanted to dive a little deeper into assessing severe and pervasive conduct. I think one thing before we dive into that, though, is the important thing is that in future slides, we'll talk about the importance of reporting and passing it on to the officials who have their responsibility. We don't want you to think that you have to engage in this sort of deep analysis on every complaint or notice you might get, because the most important thing is, if you receive notice, pass that on to the appropriate human resources or EO office to do this kind of analysis. But we thought it might be helpful to at least have kind of a idea of what these concepts mean. So to create a hostile environment based under the law, the conduct must rise to the level of being severe and pervasive. When assessing what kind of severe and pervasive means, the courts have historically kind of looked at frequency and then severity. So if the conduct is more frequent in the workplace, then the less severe it must be. So if it happens daily over the course of an entire year, it might be kind of what we would view as less severe conduct. But the courts have also recognized that sometimes if a particular act or conduct is extremely severe, that a single instance might meet that severe and pervasive standard. And then on this slide, we just talk about kind of the difference of that frequency and severity with, a touch on the shoulder once isn't likely to meet that negative, or that standard. But a touch every single day for a year would likely do that. And then if it's more like an actual physical assault, that would be clearly a single instance would likely meet that definition. As I previewed on the last slide, the most important thing for supervisors and for officials who don't actually have the obligation to investigate and follow up on these, the most important thing is reporting. And all supervisors, all kind of executive leadership have that responsibility under the law to report these items. And so if you witness yourself, or more likely if somebody comes to you and reports, sexual harassment, discrimination, harassment, dating violence under Title IX, and stalking under Title IX, if you receive reports or concerns about these, the most important thing is to report that to the appropriate university official or the appropriate regent official. And what you should report, on the slide we talk about the W's, the who, what, where, when, and if you know witnesses, but you might not know that much information. You might just know a little bit. It's basically you just report what you know, and that's the most important thing. And the to who is the appropriate human resources official or the appropriate regent official.
So why do we need to report? We need to report for two main reasons. One, we want to make sure the impacted party, the individual who has suffered the sexual harassment, is informed of their interim and supportive measures, their resources, and how to they themselves report and the complaint process, what that's going to entail. So information there is power. Also, it's an opportunity to allow the institution to respond appropriately, quickly, and redress the situation. But we can't do that unless the institution is put on notice. So that's the importance of reporting. So with that, we wanted to walk through just a couple scenarios, and then we'll go through the analysis of each. The first one is you're a supervisor, your employee tells you they may have been sexually harassed by a colleague. They don't provide much information, and they ask your opinion, but they also ask that you don't report it further, okay? So the most important thing to remember, or one of the most important things is, we're not saying you have a duty to investigate these things. Those are left for the subject matter experts, right? There's a process to get those to the people that will be investigating. But, and keep in mind, when you are reporting these things, it's likely that the individual, if you're the first person they're sharing this with, isn't giving you all of the information. And be clear, they don't have to. We just are encouraging you to report what information you have. Again, we don't want you to investigate. We want the subject matter experts to be doing that. We'd ask that you follow the procedures with regards to reporting. Share resources with that individual. Let them know what's available, how you can help, and pass them off to those who can help with interim and supportive measures. And then also maintain their privacy as much as possible. You can share with them that you have the duty to report, but that you will keep that to the officials that need to have that information. We want you to report again so that we can redress these harms and to take care of them quickly and respond.
So under scenario 2, here your administrative assistant tells you that they're having problems with the individual who has been delivering packages to your office. Delivery person has been repeatedly asking them out on dates and frequently touches their hand, shoulder, and side. And so this scenario, we really wanted to hone in on the idea that the university or the regents or the particular area this might be happening has a responsibility or may have a responsibility to follow up and address this conduct, even though here the delivery person is an external. So the idea was this is like a UPS or I don't want to single one out, but some external.
Someone delivering something.
Yes. And so even though that's not one of our employees and you don't have direct control over them, we still control the employment environment. And so we have an obligation to make sure that that environment is free from potential harassment and discrimination. And so what we should do in that situation is still report that conduct to the appropriate official, and then that appropriate official can take the appropriate remedial measures. That might be contacting the delivery company, having a different person assigned, or it might be having packages delivered somewhere else where that wouldn't be to that person who has been having the uncomfortable environment. So shifting to your general responsibilities or our general responsibilities as responsible employees, most importantly, set an example of appropriate conduct. I think that's important for everyone, for people down the reporting line to see you as an example of reporting conduct and talking about resources and talking about places people can go to talk about these things. Similarly, the importance of communicating policies and procedures so people are aware. And that's not frequent, like after we're hired, to go and peruse our handbooks, but it's important to kind of know those and point people to those. Also, for point number 3, to be able to recognize and spot problems, and if someone comes to you with an issue, knowing I need to report this, or I need to make sure this goes to someone who can assess it further. Similar to point number 1, the convey that harassment is a community-wide concern. Again, that's kind of just setting the overall tone for the office or your area. The next bullet point, again, taking every complaint seriously, as Mary talked about earlier, sometimes a complainant may come to you with very vague, or they don't want to share all the details, and so initially it might not seem like a big deal or a major concern, but the importance of communicating that anyway, just because sometimes when they talk to the EO official or the human resources official, much more information might come out. And then kind of at an institutional level, it's important to kind of have multiple channels and resources for support and potential remedial measures. And then lastly, we talked earlier about retaliation and just the importance of making sure that it's clear to people that retaliation is taken seriously and will be addressed. And that helps to assure that people report their concerns before they potentially get worse. Harassment resources, external and internal to the universities and at the federal and state levels. We have the Iowa Civil Rights Commission that investigates potential concerns of discrimination and harassment and is a good resource. Their website and you can actually call them and talk to them about that. At the federal level, we have the Equal Opportunity Commission, who similarly investigates concerns of discrimination and harassment And then internally at each of the Regent universities, we have equal opportunity officers or human resources offices that can handle your questions.
Thank you.
So with that, if you have any questions, but otherwise, that concludes.
Yes. Are there any questions for Regent Kramer?
I do have a question. So in your scenario one, you talked about someone coming to us with a concern, but they don't want you to report it any further. And so, I heard you kind of talking about report what you know or different thing. So I'm trying to balance wanting to get to the bottom of stuff, but wanting to also, not start a whole bunch of flurry of rumors of anonymous sources. So wouldn't we want to tell that person, well, here's the reporting procedure, here's who you should go to, and really try to get them to report it as opposed to just us telling kind of hypothetical stuff to other people?
Okay. Well, responsible employees have a duty to give that information over to, for the universities, the Office of Equal Opportunity, to allow us to have an opportunity to investigate it. In universities, what we would do is we would reach out to that individual and ask them to engage. All you would have to do is the minimal information, but as a responsible employee, you would let the individual know that you have responsibilities to report information up the line. So it's not going to start, it wouldn't be shared with anyone that would not need to know, but that's still a way of putting the universities on notice, or the board.
And I would just add that too, that I think that's an excellent point about the reporting it to the EO office doesn't mean that there's definitely going to be an investigation. What it means is that the EO office will reach out to the individual and provide them, like, this is the office that receives complaints. If you have this concern, we're open to hearing that, and here's other resources, external and internal to the university. But ultimately, it's still that complainant's choice whether they engage. So it won't necessarily spiral into investigation if someone doesn't want that. But that way, it's not just your responsibility to make that determination.
And then they, like I said, we would reach out to them. They choose whether or not they engage at any level. But that way, at least we have been put on notice as an institution, and we are responding. We let them, the complainant, then decide how or whether or not they want to engage and receive. They can receive interim and supportive measures without engaging in an investigation. We just want to make sure that individual is supported.
And it also helps for record-keeping purposes, just because we have, if a supervisor, if you receive a complaint and it's kind of informal, and then a year later, that person comes back and says, I told you about this, you did nothing, that can put that supervisor in a tough spot where it's like, well, I thought you told me you didn't want me to do anything. And that way we have this record that it was sent to the appropriate official, and they don't have to engage, but they had the opportunity.
The other thing too is it might not just be happening to that individual, it might be happening to several individuals. And so if you may keep something private and you may keep something private, and we're not recognizing there's a pattern or a trend there. Whereas if it's reported, then the one unit can look at that and say, oh, okay, these are coming in from all different places involving the same individual, and then we can take action.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The board has necessity to meet in closed session for the following reasons. In accordance with Iowa Code Section 21.5.1.c, to discuss strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent and premature disclosure would likely prejudice or disadvantage the position of the board. And in accordance with Iowa Code Section 21.5.1.j, to discuss the purchase or sale of a particular real estate where premature disclosure could be reasonably expected to increase the price the board would have to pay or reduce the price the board would receive for the property. And in accordance with Iowa Code Section 21.5.1.I, to discuss patient care quality and process improvement initiatives, pricing strategies, and similar proprietary information of a public hospital operated by the Board of Regents, where public disclosure of such information would harm the hospital's competitive position and no public purpose would be served by the disclosure. At the conclusion of the closed session, the board will reconvene in open session. Is there a motion that the board enter into closed session?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Regent Dunkel, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Regent Lindemeyer. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call. Regent Barker,
Yes.
Regent Ryswick,
Yes.
Regent Rouse,
Yes.
Regent Dunkel,
Yes.
Regent Kramer,
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer.
Yes.
Regent Bates votes yes. The motion is approved. Is Laura trying to? Oh, I'm sorry, she's talking.